Hey everybody, Casey here. You'll notice I am not in the hot seat. I'm actually sitting in my writer's chair behind my desk where I try to create worlds for you guys. Um, I'll probably get over the hot seat at some point, but I just decided this week I would start here and just have a chat. So I hope you enjoy it. There are over 70 questions you've submitted that'll last us for quite a while. If you have other questions you want to ask, just shoot me an email and I'll throw them in there. Otherwise, enjoy. So that's a fun question. I published my first book in 2020 or 21, whatever the first year of the pandemic was, and I had not intended to publish. I just had never thought of becoming an author at that point. And I was stuck at home, and the story just popped in my head from when I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And I decided I would write it down because I was bored and I didn't have anything else better to do. And 3 months later, I had written an 80,000 word manuscript. I didn't intend to become a writer. I just kind of did it. Um, and then for some reason, I don't even remember why, I decided to write My Accidental First Date. And it is actually the story of my first date. It's the truth. As silly and crazy as it sounds, and yeah, I did make fun of myself throughout the whole book. That's how it happened. And when I published that, I really didn't expect anything. I didn't know what to think because I'd never done anything like it. And I kind of just slapped it up on Amazon and didn't think about it. And it hit number one in several gay genre and gay subcategories for like 8 months in a row in Australia, which is completely bonkers. And that was the point at which I thought, okay, well, maybe I need to explore this male romance genre. If if what I'm writing is selling, I'm not an idiot. I need to go there. Uh, so the question was, what was it like to publish my first book? I kind of stumbled into it, but it was also exciting and terrifying and gut wrenching. And you're putting yourself out there. You're putting your sort of brainchild out there. And coming from a guy who had spent 20 years in corporate America and had barely known that a creative side of his brain existed, that was a real creative risk. That was a personal risk to put my work out there. And I knew people would tell me what they thought of it because that's what reviewers do. And I that was terrifying at first, but it was also exciting because I felt like I did this, and a lot of people say they're going to write a book, but very few people do as a percentage. So I was very proud of it, but it was definitely an experience, and I'm glad I did. It started me on a path that I never would have expected otherwise, and now I'm doing it full time. So I'm grateful for it. So, who are my influences as a writer? That's a great question. Um, so, I would say early on, the first book series, I think I told you this, that I ever read that got me into liking reading because I hated to read as a kid. Sorry, was The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien. Um, I have to say, looking back now, I've tried to pick the books up again and read them again as an adult, and stylistically, they're wonderful classic books. How's that for a nice disclaimer? They make great movies. I just don't need 20 pages on the bark of a tree, and Tolkien tends to do that a lot. From his specific writing style, I wouldn't say that kind of got in my blood, but the concept of world building, of creating layered characters that are not all good or not all bad, um, the way he weaves a lot of characters into a story throughout a story, and I learned to appreciate side characters through his books as well. Brandon Sanderson on the fantasy side is another one. In the romance genre, I really didn't start reading male romance until 4 or 5 years ago. I'd say Riley Hart was the first one I really fell in love with. I adore her books. Um, More recently, some of you have introduced me to Tal Bauer. I mean, I knew who he was, but I never read his books. I really enjoy. Okay, I'm going to speak blasphemy. I love his stories and I love his writing. I don't go nuts over his sex scenes, but I'm probably not the one that's going to go nuts over anybody's sex scenes. But I really, really like how he weaves um, complex stories with the romance genre, which I try to do. I mean, you guys know that. I try to do that a lot. And so I identify with him as an author. Um, I think, there are other authors that, in terms of writing style, I've probably um, so Joe Abercrombie, I may have mentioned him before at some point. He is another sort of dark fantasy writer. He is the best author I have ever read in terms of describing a scene without describing it and letting the reader's mind fill in the details. He's just brilliant at that. And if I could ever be anything close to him, I mean, craft wise, it would be a privilege. So I would say those are probably my greatest influences at this point. I mean, the list is really long of authors that I love and that have fed into my quirky style. But those are probably. Oh, Nora Phoenix is another one. She writes male romance. She's a fantastic author. Um, I like her dialogue especially. So yeah, that would be. I think that would be my off the top of my head list without having done a lot of research. This is a hard question, and I think it depends on what what you're asking about. So, take stories for example. If you're asking where do I get inspiration for a specific story or a storyline, that comes from all sorts of places. Some of them are suggestions from you guys. Some of them are suggestions from a writing coach or other authors. It can come from a lot of places. It could just come from real life that I see, somebody working as a chef, and so now I want to write a book about chefs or whatever. It could be that simple. When you get into characters, I think characters are the cornerstone on which a successful story is built. You can have a great story, but if you have weak characters, it's going to fail. It's just not going to be good. People fall in love with characters; they don't fall in love with storylines. So, um, take Cooper, who some of you know is like my favorite character ever. I just love him. Um, he was inspired by a character I read in a book, and then I happened to that same week. It was just kind of funny how it happened. I saw a movie with a character who kind of had a toe on the autism spectrum, and he did that sort of word vomit thing, and and then the next week I met a family who has a son who is like that, and it all kind of you see it enough, it kind of sinks in, and I knew I wanted to make that character real for people, but not in a way that made you say, "Oh, he's got autism" or something like that. I never in the book mention it. I never tell you why he has word vomit. I wanted you to love Cooper, and that just be a quirk of his personality or a part of him. And I think that's what sort of in the experience of meeting some of these people, that's what they want. They want you to see them for who they are and not whatever their condition is or whatever their situation. I think it's what we all want. And so if I think real people most of the time are where the inspiration from characters come from, for characters comes from, because I want my characters to be so real that you just feel like you know them. And when you close the book, you wish they were in your life. And the only way I know to do that is to draw from real people. So yeah, I would say definitely when it comes to character, it could be somebody I see in a Starbucks across the way, and they just stick in my head. But most of the time, it's somebody I meet and get to know and kind of learn their personality a little bit. Oh, that's a good question. He does look good. It's hard to, yeah, he looks good. I would say his sense of humor would probably be my favorite thing. We laugh and joke and play and are like little kids nonstop. He is the sweet, funny one, and I am definitely the snarky one, in case you can't tell from the books. Um, but we mean it all in good spirit, and I mean, I wish you could have seen us when we were in Paris 100 years ago. The French people just looked at us like we were crazy because we were walking down the street giggling like little children. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, his sense of humor is definitely the thing I would say. Are you actually asking if I have a favorite child? Who? What childless person asked me that question? How can you ask that? Um, no. So they're different. Cooper is the old man. We love him. We got him when he was probably 2.5 from the pound as a companion for Sydney. Sad story, I won't go into it, but we wanted her to have a companion after we lost another dog. Sydney is the princess, and she is very much a princess. She's sweet, and she's probably the smartest dog I have ever had. Like, she's brilliantly smart. But she wants you to pet her when she wants you to pet her, and if she does not want you to pet her, you better just let her lay there, or she will be unhappy. And then there's Ollie. So Ollie's my boy. Um, Everything you think of when I say the word dude, that's Ollie. He's just this fun-loving, dumb jock who wants to play all the time, and is just this 60-pound goofball who thinks he can sit in your lap, and it's just fine. He'll just climb up on the couch and sit right on you, and have no idea why it's wrong. And he's actually smarter than that. He's that boy that never applied himself but could have gotten into college. I think that's Ollie, and I just adore him. He's such a goofball. But they're all just different. Of course, I don't love one child more than the other. That's like saying I love one reader more than the other, and I can't do that.